David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Finance, has he ever ruled out compulsory KiwiSaver, and if so, is that still his position?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, I can't recollect every statement I've made on national super. Having been involved as a politician in this issue now for 20 years, the government has an open mind, and it has set up the Savings Working Group to explore all options, including government savings, improvements to the tax system and its effect on savings, and development of KiwiSaver.
Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, why then did he tell a constituent less than a year ago that, quote, "I note your comment that KiwiSaver should be made compulsory or the contribution rate returned to 4%. The government does not support either of these options." And if so, when did he change his mind that it was an option worth considering?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member will be aware that the government put together a significant tax package in opposition, which we implemented early after we were re-elected, that included changes to KiwiSaver. And the letter to my constituent accurately quotes the government position, and that remains the government position.
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister, if savings options from the working group must be fiscally neutral, must increased savings then come from either households or businesses or both?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there's an iron rule about saving, and that is you can only save more if you spend less. That is how savings works.
Chris Tremaine. Oh, is it a point of order? I beg your pardon. The Honourable David Cunliffe, point of order.
Mr. Speaker, taking your advice from yesterday, that was an absolutely straight question which asked, given that the Minister said it must be fiscally neutral, must it therefore come from households or businesses or both? The Minister didn't address that either or trade-off at all. He either needed to confirm or not confirm. It was quite simple.
Well, ministers have never been forced to confirm what members might like them to confirm. The member asked whether or not the policy was for savings to be fiscally neutral, and I think the Minister responded to that part of the question. He said that the only way savings could be achieved if spending was reduced, and which seemed to be agreeing with the first part of the member's question. I'll hear the honourable member further.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate that. The first clause of the question was not the question, it was the presupposition, which said if savings options must be fiscally neutral. It then went on to ask the question, must it therefore be true that increased savings have to come from households or businesses or both? And he did not address the operative part of the question, Mr. Speaker.
Well, the order. I think the Minister's answer pointed out that the only way savings can be achieved if spending is less. Now, I imagine that means right across the economy. And the member's got further supplementary questions if he wants to. I don't believe the Minister evaded the question. It may not have been exactly the answer the member wanted, but he does have further supplementaries. In fact, I'll let him ask a supplementary before I go to the other side. No, Chris Tremaine.
To the Minister of Finance, what impact has KiwiSaver made on national savings in recent years?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I expect that the impact will be one of the issues debated by the Savings Working Group. There is no doubt that for some individuals it has increased their savings, but it's not obvious that it has made a measurable difference to national savings. In fact, what has become clear is that even through the period where the New Zealand Superannuation Fund was set up and KiwiSaver was set up, New Zealand ended up with record balance of payments deficits, averaging over 8% of GDP per year, and foreign liabilities climbed from 100 billion to 170 billion. That is why we believe it is somewhat simplistic to think that having higher household savings naturally means higher national savings. That is not necessarily the case. And that's why the Savings Working Group has to look at national savings, that is government, households and businesses, not just households.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, can the Minister then confirm that one of his first acts on taking office was to reduce the level of incentives in KiwiSaver? And can he further confirm that the government's very serious net international liabilities are overwhelmingly driven by private dissaving and the building up of housing debt, which his government has done precious little to address?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, we don't claim to have addressed the international liabilities directly. Certainly the recession has had the effect that household debt has stopped rising. But Mr Speaker, in answer to the member's question about cutting KiwiSaver, we put less incentives into KiwiSaver, which means the government has smaller deficits, and the net effect on national saving is neutral.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker,
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
If the government, according to the Minister, is able to save on the public's behalf, does he now take the position that the level of personal or household savings is irrelevant to the total national international debt?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, clearly not. As I've said before, national savings are made up of savings of households, government and business. And I've made the point a number of times that the government borrowing from overseas lenders in order to look like we're increasing savings in New Zealand simply doesn't make any sense. It doesn't increase our national savings at all. We end up with a bit more household savings but more debt to foreigners. And eventually foreigners will stop lending us money so that we can pretend we're increasing savings.
Question number 5, Michael Woodhouse.